Inspired talks of Swami Vivekananda. Pranam mantra. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suray Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. It was Thursday, July 18th. Swamiji is talking to his disciples who are present at Thousand Island Parks. And there is a small comment added here. The lessons today was mainly Shankara's argument against the conclusion of the Sankhya philosophy. Those of you who have been listening to our talks by now surely remember, and this must have settled in their minds, that there are 6 Vedic philosophies, popularly known as Indian philosophies, Orthodox philosophy. Uh, it is wrong to conclude that there are only 6 Indian philosophies, because apart from Buddhistic philosophy and Jain philosophy, in Hindu tradition itself, we have many more philosophies like Shaiva philosophy and Agam Darshan and Pashupad Darshan. Many philosophies are there. And these philosophies have been very beautifully discussed in a book called Sarva Darshan Sangraha. Sarva Darshan Sangraha. It's a Sanskrit work, but its translation is available in different languages. It's a beautiful book, Sarva Darshan Sangraha. However, Shadadarshan, 6 systems of philosophies, also known as Vedic philosophy or also known as Astic Darshan, Orthodox philosophies. These philosophies are based on the Vedas. This we have discussed many times, and I'm sure most of you will remember this by now. Of these, Sankhya is a very important, very important philosophy. Those of you who are interested in knowing more about Sankhya philosophy can refer to our talks in Hinduism series of talks. There in philosophy section, Sankhya has been discussed, Sankhya Yoga, etc. In very brief, Sankhya Darshan rests on simple truth according to them, that there is pure consciousness known as Purush, and there is Prakriti, which you can say the ocean of energy. So you have river of consciousness and you have a river of energy. Don't take these words literally. However, in one of the commentaries on Yoga Darshan, they use the word river. So basically, there are 2 streams, and whenever they come close, for whatever reason, there is creation. Being a stream, being a river, the number of conscious principles is infinite. These are known as Purusha. Secondly, Purusha and the energy, which is Prakriti, these are independent entities and ever existent. Now, whenever there is creation, that means as we are in this world, we can very clearly feel that we have consciousness. So consciousness actually becomes the quality of Purusha. It's a very subtle point, and it might be slightly difficult for you to grasp. But this is where the philosophy of Sankhya rests. That soul has consciousness. Vedanta is a very old system of philosophy, popularized by Vyasa and later on taken up by greats like Shankaracharya. According to Vedanta, soul is consciousness. Soul doesn't have consciousness. Soul is consciousness. And because soul is consciousness, you cannot have many souls. So you cannot have many Purusha. And you cannot have anything other than Purusha. Because consciousness has to be infinite. So naturally it never creates. Because if creation is real, in Sankhya creation is real. Whenever Purusha and Prakriti come close, there is creation. Now if creation is real, then bondage becomes real. If bondage becomes real, then bondage will keep coming and going, and there will never be absolute freedom. This is what Swamiji will be discussing. Now, a simple question may arise. Those of you who are thinking types and going by your messages and mails, I can tell you that there are many thinking types in our audience. The question may arise that there is that book, the Vedas, and these philosophies are based on the Vedas. How come these different interpretations? Now, this is not unique to the Vedas. This problem is there with every sacred book. Because a sacred book is about realization of the great. And whatever these greats conveyed to their disciples, they noted down. And sometimes there is gap between the understanding power of the disciples and the master. So naturally this creates problem. There will always be problem. But more than that, much more than that, there's a more serious issue involved in it, which, if you understand, will help you understand the diversity of religions. There is God. See God in any form you want. That does not matter. In whatever form you see God, God has to be powerful. That's the meaning of God. God is not person. God is not limited in time and space. So he's all powerful. Go by any scripture. Now, those of you who say that you don't believe in God, well, these talks are not meant for you then. Now, if this God is not a person, if this God is not limited in time and space, go by any religious book, be it Quran, be it Bible, be it Vedas, be it Upanishad, be it Bauddha religion, it does not matter. Everyone will tell you that God is beyond time and space. He has to be. God means that. He has to be beyond time and space. So, the entity which is beyond time and space has to be all powerful. And he appears before his devotees. Since he is not confined in time and space, you cannot say that God will have only this form, nor can you say that God will always be formless. It's such a simple argument, and I wonder how these religious preachers make a mess of it. It beats me. It beats me. I don't know why. So now the problem is that same God may appear to me in form and may appear to you in an entirely different form, because he's not a person. He's not like me or you. That, see, what's the difference between me and, say, God? I'm limited in time and space. God is not. Worse, I am also bound by causality. That is, there is cause and effect relationship. In God, there is no such causality. Meaning, he can do anything he wishes. He can appear to you in any form he wishes. This time-space causation, this is Maya, this is Prakriti, this is bondage. God is beyond it. These rules do not apply on him. Now, we do not know how God chose to reveal himself to Kapil, sage Kapil, who is founder of, say, Sankhya Darshan, Sankhya philosophy. And we don't know how he chose to reveal himself to Vyasa or to Shankaracharya. We don't know. And how he chose to reveal himself to, say, Ramanuja and to, say, Madhva. Because this becomes very easy to understand if you study Sri Ramakrishna's biography. He did sadhana through various paths, and he had realization of various aspects of God, various forms of God. Because God is infinite. You cannot say that God is only this. Those who are cutting off heads of others in the name of their religion, they don't understand very basic thing about religion. Like, sad. It's really sad. If they had understood religion, they would have never talked about all this nonsense. That's the right word for them, nonsense. What are the Vedas? Because we just mentioned that these 6 systems of philosophies, they are based on the Vedas. Now, the Vedas are not an authority the way, say, the Bible is or the Quran is. The Vedas are Jnana Rashi. It's a knowledge bank of the Hindus, spiritual knowledge bank of the Hindus. If you want to understand the Vedas, we say the Vedas are apaurushaya, that is impersonal, and the Vedas were breathed out by God. Perfectly all right, nothing wrong with all that. But the Vedas, as they have come to us in the 4 Vedas, Rig, Sam, Yajur, and Atharva, these are knowledge bank, Gyan Rashi. That's the term they use, Gyan Rashi. And Gyan cannot come to us unless they be conveyed to us through words. So the Vedas are also Shabda Rashi, a heap of words. Depending on how you look at the Vedas, either they are a heap of words or they are knowledge bank. To know God, you will have to transcend the Vedas. Because the knowledge that is there in the Vedas relate to this world. And they also relate to how to reach God from this world. So ultimately, this world gets involved. Spirituality is all about the other world. Not only the Vedas, no scripture can ever be final as far as spiritual knowledge is concerned. Others do not say that. Although there were discussions in every religious tradition on this issue. But in Hinduism, this problem was resolved when they very clearly said, you need to go beyond the Vedas because they are Gyan Rashi and they are involved with the affairs of the world. So, not only 6, there can be many more philosophies. There might have been many more philosophies about which we don't know. So, why 6? Because we find that Acharya Shankar has more or less codified them into 6. And we find there are books based on these 6 systems of philosophy. But if you go to other systems of philosophy, they also claim themselves to be Vedic. However, when there is a tradition, we shouldn't apply our mind. It's best to leave traditions the way they are. So now let us see how Swamiji puts it with this idea clear, fundamental idea clear. The Sankhya say that consciousness is a compound. Here by consciousness, Swamiji means a combination of mind and matter. Because mind itself is matter. We have discussed it many times, and those of you who are hearing for the first time, may please listen to our talks on Raj Yoga. And beyond that, the last analysis gives us the Purusha, witness. But there are many Purushas, each of us is one. That's a fundamental thing about Sankhya. And why Sankhya came up with this idea of many Purushas, it's impossible to say. It might be because of we see the individualities. I am different and you are different. So the idea that there is one Purusha within me and within you like that. It might have come from there. And as I said, it all depends on God, how he chose to reveal himself and how he chose to reveal the truth about the world to that great sage. Advaita, on the contrary, affirms that Purusha can be only one, that Purusha cannot be conscious, unconscious, or have any qualification for. Either these qualities would bind or they would eventually cease. A very important statement from Swamiji. Those of you who are really interested in understanding the warp and woof of spirituality should study inspired talks on a regular basis. Study inspired talks of Swami Vivekananda on a regular basis, and you will understand the alpha and omega of spirituality. You have a piece of cloth, and that piece is, say, red, let's say. So red is the quality of that piece of cloth. With time it will fade. If the color is not very, very, very fast, you give it a wash and it will fade. And if it is fast, you put it in the sun and the rains, and after some time you'll see that it starts fading. But can redness go away from red? No, it cannot. Because as far as red color is concerned, redness is not its quality, redness is its essence. There's a difference between quality and essence. Now, this is something we always fail to understand. Once you understand this, the difference between essence and quality, very often when we talk of essence, we actually mean quality, and that is where things go wrong. So great sages like Ramanuja and all, when they wanted to talk about essence, they actually kept on talking about qualities. Now see, a person like me, and me personally, I'm too ordinary when it comes to the great minds like C. Ramanuja and all, and my most respectful pranams. And when God sent great Acharya like Ramanuja and Madhvacharya, God must have some reason. So who are we to discuss? And who are we to criticize? However, I belong to Ramakrishna tradition, Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition, and I belong to Acharya Shankara's tradition. So to me, Upanishads and Gita and the Vedas as interpreted by Shankaracharya, as confirmed by Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, is the ultimate truth. And what is that ultimate truth? What we normally consider as qualities is essentially essence. Dear listeners, understand this, and a lot of your confusion regarding God will get cleared for ever, and ever. When you say God is compassionate, you mean that compassion is a quality of God. No, it's not. Compassion is the essence of God. When you say God is just, you mean to say God has just as justice as its quality. He delivers justice. No, he doesn't. It is his essence. Same with purity. Same with his infinite nature. Every time we say nature, we mean essence, not quality. Because in this world, normally we see things as qualities. Normally we rarely come across things which have essence. So when we say fire, the burning power is its essence, not quality. But the burning capacity of wood may differ. So some wood may have more heat content within it, some may have less. So burning power of wood is its quality. But burning power of fire is its essence. I'm sure you won't have, I'm sure you don't have difficulty understanding this. There's a difference between essence and quality. Very often while talking, we superimpose and transpose one on the other. Because we normally talk about something thinking that it is its essence, but actually it's quality. As I said, just think of two different kinds of wood. There are some wood which are very fast burning. So the fuel content in them is not tightly packed. So burning power is its quality. As far fire is concerned, no, it doesn't matter. Its burning power is burning power. It never changes. That is why we have Agni, fire, as God. Wherever there is essence, there is a God. Wherever there is essence, there is God. So the gods in Hinduism do not have qualities. Greek gods have qualities. Hindu gods do not have quality. They are the mask of a particular essence. When we talk about Indra and Mitra and Varuna and Agni and Yama, these are essence, certain essence. And you just put a mask on them. Now, if these are qualities, qualities will fade, qualities will go away. As I said, if you have a red cloth, red being its quality, it will fade. But red of redness will never go away. For either these qualities would bind or they would eventually cease. They'll bind. You'll say, this red is good and this red is not good. So the one must be without any qualities, even knowledge, and it cannot be the cause of the universe or of anything. Actually, all these are such simple argument. God doesn't have any qualities. Whatever quality you think of is actually God's essence. God cannot be bound by the qualities, because qualities have tendency to go up and down. So that cannot be God. Even knowledge is not its quality, it's its essence. When you say all-knowing God, we don't mean all-knowing in the sense of quality. We mean in the sense of essence. And for the same reason, it cannot be the cause of the universe or of anything. It cannot be. God is not the cause of this universe, nor is it cause of anything else. He is not the cause of your misery. He is not the cause of your happiness. Vedanta is not meant for the faint-hearted. In the beginning, existence only, one without a second, says the Vedas. This idea keeps coming in the Vedas repeatedly. That there was only existence, pure existence. And because there was no mind to perceive it, so sometimes it is talked about as no non-existence, no existence like that. If you listen to our Nasadiya Sukta talks, which is there in the Hinduism series, you will get these mantras. You will get some idea. Swamiji continues. The presence of sattva with knowledge does not prove that sattva is the cause of knowledge. Sattva, there are three qualities in everything in this universe: sattva, rajas, tamas. Sattva also means mind, and sattva also means the quality that brings in knowledge. Gita beautifully describes it as whenever sattva increases in a personality, his love for knowledge and his love for happiness grows, increases. So essentially it will mean that as you grow in sattva, your knowledge grows. Swamiji says, no. The presence of sattva with knowledge does not prove that sattva is the cause of knowledge. Sattva is not the cause of knowledge. But on the contrary, sattva calls out what was already existing in man as the fire heats an iron ball placed near it by arousing the heat latent in it, not by entering into the ball. If fire could heat, then it would have heated wood too. It doesn't. Heat is inside the iron ball in the form of looseness of molecules. Molecules are arranged in such a way that when heat waves come, its molecules get excited. So you require heat, not to transfer something from one to another. The potential is within. Knowledge is within me. So when sattva increases, that knowledge gets manifested. So sattva is not the direct cause of knowledge, but sattva is the indirect cause. Just indirect cause. That means the knowledge that comes to us and the spiritual knowledge that comes to us, it is not because of purity, because sattva is also connected directly with purity. Purity leads you to knowledge. Purity leads you to spiritual knowledge. But purity is not the cause. It is already there. Think of a lamp and think of covering on that lamp. As you go on cleaning that covering, removing the dust, light appears brighter and brighter. The process of cleaning only removes the covering. It is not the direct cause, but the indirect one. Why we are discussing this? Because that differentiates Vedanta from other systems of thought. So, for example, take Christianity. According to Christianity, as you become noble and good and you do virtuous deeds and you do love thy neighbor and this and that, all those things, you become more and more religious. Now you become more and more fit to go towards God. Not in Vedanta, according to Vedanta. All nobility that you can think of is already within you. When you do good things, when you do noble things, the coverings get removed. Should we accept that? Of course. Because if you don't accept it, in that case, as Swamiji mentioned just a few sentences ago, that if these are qualities, if knowledge is quality of my soul, then that knowledge will go away at some time. Because quality has a tendency to go up and down. Essence never goes away. Today I messaged a friend, where are you? So the answer was everywhere. I love the answer, everywhere, sarvatra. It was a joke. But even if you have to joke, have fun based on truths. No. There's a very interesting story about Heisenberg, who gave uncertainty principle. There's a story about Heisenberg. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle actually says that you cannot say with precision the location of a particle and its speed, velocity. So once he was flagged for speeding. So the policeman asked, "Sir, do you know that you are overspeeding? And do you know where you are in that particular state? It was prohibited to cross a particular speed limit." So Heisenberg beautifully said, "I know where I am. I don't know what is my speed." Love this joke. This is physics. This is physicist. He knew that he's in that state, but he did not know what was the speed limit. So he says, "I know where I am, but I don't know what is my speed." Or it might just be a story because I read in one of the joke books, scientific joke books, that conveys the idea. When a scientist talks, even if he's joking, is related to his subject. Same with biology, same with medical sciences, same with engineering, same with spirituality. Where are you? Everywhere. Wonderful. So, Shankara says, knowledge is not a bondage because it is the nature of God. It cannot be a bondage. It's not a quality. Quality binds you. Knowledge is his essence. The world ever is, whether manifested or unmanifested, so an eternal object exists. Creation is always there. Sometimes it is manifest and sometimes it is not manifest. Sri Ramakrishna used to say beautifully, there is snake. Sometimes it moves, sometimes it doesn't. Snake remains. And the potential to move is always there. As in Abrahamic religion, creation did not come into existence at some point of time. No, it did not. Gyan, Bala, Kriya, knowledge, power, activity is God. So this concept that God is Satchidananda, Gyan is Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. God is Gyan, Bala, Kriya, that is knowledge, power, activity. This is God. What is God? Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. What is God? Satchitananda. What is God? Jnana, Bala, Kriya. And nor does he need form, because a finite only needs form to interpose as an obstruction to catch and hold infinite knowledge. It's, I don't know if you feel amazed listening to Inspire Talks. It's phenomenal. Swamiji's words are simply phenomenal. Why do we need a body? Why do we need a mind? To catch knowledge. So we are actually like a net. Just imagine when you go fishing, or those of you might have seen fishing directly or in movies. You need different kinds of nets. If you want to catch a very big fish, you can have net with larger pores. And if you need smaller fish, you need smaller pores. But you need a net. Here is this infinite knowledge. You need a mind to catch those ideas. But God doesn't need. Nor does he need form. So, if you need a mind, you also need a body. Because mind cannot exist without a brain, and brain cannot exist without a body. Why do we have this body? So that we can catch knowledge. To catch knowledge, you need to have a mind, brain, and body. And it is through this knowledge that you go beyond mind and you go towards mukti. So Dr. Seema asks, so all the knowledge and consciousness that we have is God in essence, of course. So after listening to the whole Ramayana, you ask, who was Sita? This is what we have been discussing. Is, of course, all consciousness is God. All knowledge is God. So our mind is like an obstruction. You catch certain ideas. When you say a person has a dull mind, you mean to say that the pores of his net, that is mind, are pretty large. So finer ideas flow out. When you say very fine mind, you mean to say that the pores are extremely fine. So the person can catch subtle ideas. Not everybody can catch subtle ideas. It's not possible to hold on to subtle ideas. You need to have a very, very, very fine mind, which means essentially the pores of that net, hypothetical net, is very fine. So it's an obstruction. There's this flow of consciousness, and you apply that net to catch some of those fish. So a great scientist like, say, Einstein, his net was very fine, so he could catch the idea of relativity. But God really needs no such help. Knowledge being not a quality of God, God doesn't need this net. There is no moving soul. There is only one Atman. Now, Swamiji is coming back. So, this me, you, there is no moving soul. There is no Jiva. Ji means the soul that identifies itself with the mind. It appears to be identified with mind. Actually, there is only one soul. We will be discussing more of this. So don't start asking questions. Jiva, that is individual soul, is the conscious ruler of this body in whom the five life principles come into unity. And yet, that very Jiva is the Atman, because all is Atman. There is nothing outside Atman. The five life principles, that is Pran, Apan, Vyan, Udan, Saman, these five vital forces, they become harmonized. And being harmonized, they work through this mind. And we call it Jiva, but in essence, it is Atman. Uh, you can listen to our Mandukya Karika talks. There also, this discussion comes in detail. What you think about it is your delusion and not in the Jiva. Delusion is not in the Jiva, delusion is in your mind. This is what Mandukya Karika repeatedly says. Or, for that matter, all the Upanishads say. When we think of transmigration, when we think of birth and death, particularly when we think of death, it's a delusion. You are thinking that you are moving from life form to death, but there is actually no movement. It is our identification with the mind that makes us think like that. Think of a cloud cover moving, the shadow is moving, nothing is moving. If somehow there is a hole in that cloud and there is sun, and the sun seems to have, the sunlight is there on the flat of the earth, it seems to be moving. Nothing is, sun is there. Sun is there the way it was, and the earth is there the way it was, as a cloud that's moving. You are God, and whatever else you may think is wrong, you must worship the self in Krishna, not Krishna as Krishna. This is a very, very, very powerful statement. You are God, and whatever else you may think is wrong. You are one with God. Whatever else you think of yourself, as Jivatma, as mind, as body, everything is wrong, 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 wrong. You must worship the self in Krishna. When you worship Sri Krishna, whom are you worshipping? Worshipping yourself. Don't worship Krishna as Krishna. That will be idolatry. Normally, we say that when we worship Sri Rama, when we worship Krishna, or when we worship Shiva, we worship that infinite God having that form. The ultimate of Vedanta takes you one step further. There is that self, and only self is there. And that self creates the mind. So now it appears divided. For example, there's a pond and you put a stick. The stick now divides the water. So now you have two water, the smaller and the larger. And now the smaller one worships the larger one. When I am worshipping Sri Ramakrishna, when I am worshipping, say, Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, say Shiva, or anyone, Vedanta will say that do worship, there's nothing wrong with it, but know that it is your own self. When you worship, you are worshipping self with a capital S, not with a small s. Vaishnavas will never agree, and the Vaishnavas will be horrified. Don't worship Krishna as Krishna. You worship self in Krishna. There's a very interesting discussion in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna where a devotee makes this statement where it says that, isn't it that when we worship God, we actually worship ourselves? And Sri Ramakrishna says, well, that's from an extremely high plane. That means that's not meant for ordinary beings. Swamiji is here letting out the treasures, the spiritual treasures of Hindu religion, spiritual treasures of India, and spiritual treasures of Vedanta. When you worship Jesus, you are worshipping the self, not yourself, self. Atman. Because infinite can never be worshipped. The impersonal can never be worshipped. So you need to create the ambience of personality. How do you create that? By bringing in ego. Ego and mind, they are connected. There comes the mind, just like a stick dividing water. There's a larger body and there's a smaller body of water. The smaller body worshipping the larger body. The smaller one will say that we worship that. Somebody has to say that, look, that is also water, you are also water. Remove the stick and you will know. Just like that. This is actually Vedanta, nothing wrong with it. As we proceed, we will see more of this. So, only by worshipping the self can freedom be won. If you want freedom, you need to worship self with a capital S. When bhakti is harmonized with jnana, Upanishads do not do that, but in Gita we find it harmonized. They say that Gita says, and later bhakti literature says that when you worship your Easter as infinite God, he takes you to freedom. Acharya Shankar beautifully gives those steps. What are those steps? However, according to Shankaracharya, he being a Vedantin, freedom will come only when you have knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna had a vision, beautiful vision in Varanasi. And Hindus believe that if you die in Varanasi, there is a particular that area, you will attain liberation. So, Sri Ramakrishna describes that when somebody dies, Mother of the universe, removes the bondage, and Lord Shiva tells, look, here is my infinite form. You are a worshipper of Shiva, the personification of the infinite. But to attain mukti, to attain liberation, you need to be one with the infinite. You need to become pure consciousness. How do you do it? By seeing the infinite aspect of Shiva. This infinite aspect is not confined to, say, Krishna or Rama or Shiva or Sri Ramakrishna. When you worship God, you have to know that it's the self, the Atman, appearing as two, me and my Ishta. And by praying to Ishta, he will reveal his infinite form. Once I experience that infinite form, there is no more coming back to this world. Even personal God is but the self-objectified. I tell you, so profound. It can be very disturbing to devotees. It can be extremely disturbing for the weak-minded. Even personal God is but the self-objectified. Intense search after my own reality is bhakti, says Shankara. Essentially, what Acharya Shankara means to say that intense search for myself, that is my Atman. It's bhakti. So what is bhakti? Intense search for myself in a particular way. All the means we take to reach God are true. It is only like trying to find the pole star by locating it through the stars that are around it. It's a simple statement because this is, there are terms for that. There is a beautiful term called Arundhati Nyaya. Arundhati is one of those stars which is very faint. So when you want to show someone Arundhati, first you show larger stars and slowly you point at Arundhati. So it is only like trying to find the pole star by locating it through the stars that are around it. Well, meaning is clear and obvious. The Bhagavad Gita is the best authority on Vedanta. So if you want to understand Vedanta in all its aspects, not in all its aspects, but most of its aspects, Bhagavad Gita is the best work. Luckily for us, fortunately for us, we have delivered talk on entire Gita, I think in 63 talks. It's there in the playlist you'll find. You can listen to that entire Gita. They're the best authority on Vedanta. If you want to really understand Vedanta, you should study Gita. So that was July 18th, and then we move on to July 19th. And Swamiji says, so long as I say you, I have the right to speak of God protecting us. See, this is what Vedanta really means. People have extreme wrong notions about Vedanta. Just now, like we were discussing that when you worship God, you're worshipping self. But that's for whom? For the spiritually elevated, spiritually enlightened. Not for ordinary ones like us. So long as I say you, till I have this sense of I and you, I and the world, I have the right to speak of God protecting us. God then appears to us as a protector, as a milch cow who provides us with whatever we want. When I see another, I must take all the consequences and put in the third, the ideal, which stands between us. That is the apex of the triangle. When I see myself and when I see you, these two can be related only when we have a third, and that is God. So what about when I see myself and there is a God? Do we need a third one? This is known as anavastha dosa. That is, you need to put a stop somewhere, otherwise it will continue. You need a base for a base, and you need another base for that. So it's you have to stop somewhere. The buck stops where? With God. So the vapor becomes snow, then water, then Ganga. But when it is vapor, there is no Ganga. And when it is water, we think of no vapor in it. So there is Ganga, and there is water, and there is vapor rising up. These are one and the same. And yet, when we think of Ganga, we don't think of water. When we think of water, we don't think of clouds. We have discussed it earlier that mind can take only one idea at a time. It's wrong to think that we can have two ideas. They can move very fast. They may appear to be conjoined, but actually they are not. They are different. So long as we perceive the idea of creation or change is inseparably connected with will. Naturally, whenever there is an object, created object, here is this pen. So there, it must have been created. When you think of creation, there must have been a will. Somebody wanted to create a pen. So Waterman created fountain pen, and then there was this dot pen, and now we have gel pen, and there this pen, that pen, lots of pen. There was a will, and there was creation. When you look at this creation, you always think of a will. So long as we perceive this world in motion, we have to conceive will behind it. That's where lies the root of all dualism. Because you're seeing this world, the world is so real for you. And if the world is real for you, there has to be a will. And if there is a will, it has to be God. So God will have all those qualities. God will not have those essence. Dear listeners, these arguments are actually very simple. And because these are simple, they're profound. Or rather, they are profound and hence simple. Because complex things are never profound. There is that famous Occam's razor. According to him, it has to be simple. Truth has to be simple. Whenever you forward an argument, it has to be simple. It should be complex. And you will see all those grand equations in physics, they're also simple. E equal to mc square. Such a simple equation, so profound. Equations for kinetic energy and potential energy and work and heat. All these things are so profound. It's so simple. In fact, that is what makes me extremely suspicious of Stephen Hawking. His equations are so complex. I mean, too ordinary to judge a great man like him. But when you link the simplicity and profundity, you find that somewhere modern physics lacks that simplicity. If it's not simple, probably it is not grand. Arguments that Swamiji is presenting here, these are not his arguments, mind it. These are the arguments of Vedanta. The sheer profundity of these arguments can be matched only by its sheer simplicity. So long as we perceive this world in motion, we have to conceive will behind it. If there is will, there has to be a God. So all these dualistic religions, they have this problem. They don't even realize this. Physics prove the utter delusion of the senses. Nothing really is as we see, hear, feel, smell, taste it. Certain vibrations producing certain results affect our senses. We know only relative truth. So during Swamiji's time, it was the idea of vibrations. Now, of course, see, I'm not a student of physics. Just that I'm quite curious about physics. By nature, I'm interested in the mysteries of this existence. So the last I read, because physics changes so fast, so difficult to keep pace with them. And those of you who know physics well would definitely know much better. It's all about electrons now. And the electrons, and we know that Whatever is happening in the universe, it's all about electrons, electrons, electrons. So, oh, Otos Datta, how non-living objects can be identified with Chaitanya. That makes us see all living beings as one. This, see, your question is really good, but remember, if you want to ask a question, you need to know the subject first. And means if you want to go to fundamentals, we have repeatedly said that actually this knowledge comes only nirvikalpa samadhi, non-dual samadhi. There is no other way to know. If you imagine things, mind it, imagination is a play of mind. And because imagination is play of mind, today you will imagine things in one way, and tomorrow your imagination will change. The arguments that we are seeing here, these arguments are continuing for uh, many classes now. If you listen to all the previous talks, you will get some idea. However, all these conclusions that we are discussing here, they are based on spiritual realization. The arguments that are being placed here, they are kind of questionable. And that's why Shankaracharya is challenged by Ramanuja, and both of them are challenged by Madhvacharya. When it came to Sri Ramakrishna, he saw things like that. And when somebody was trying to argue with him, he would simply say that, look, why should I listen to you? I've seen it like this. There is the proof. You want to see? You too can see. There's nothing. It's not that only I have seen it and you cannot see it. So, Utos Nirdatta. Spirituality is not about arguments. Not that it is illogical. It has its own form of logic. For example, physics has its own way of logic, so has biology, and so has mathematics. If you go to, say, basic mathematics, A into B equals B into A. Everyone knows it. Anyone who has studied, say, up to class 5, 6 knows that A into B equal to B into A. But if you go to matrix system of mathematics, matrix, there A into B is not equal to B into A. Now, those of you who have not studied matrix, you'll be horrified. Oh, what's this? It's a fact. So argument and logic in matrix theory goes contrary to the common understanding of mathematics. Just like that, in spirituality also, they have their own method of argumentation. They have their own logic. However, all these argumentations are not to arrive at the truth, but to explain the truth. They will say that, how do I know that your truth is true? They will say that, well, there is only one thing. These are the words of the sages, words of the masters, something that we have discussed many times. If you say that, no, I am not ready to accept that, well, then this is not meant for you. It's a very simple thing they will say. So, certain vibrations producing certain results affect our senses. We know only relative truth. So, as I said, that it is now related to electrons. It is because of electrons. So, when we smell something, it is electrons affecting certain electrons within our senses. So, it's not that that object truly has that quality. So, Swamiji, what Swamiji means to say here is that what we think of senses and what we think of sense objects normally under normal condition, they're not really the way they are. Even Bertrand Russell, in his famous work on philosophy, He talks about, see, normally when we talk about, say, a table, its hardness and its length and breadth, they're not really the way we understand. If you examine very closely, things are pretty different. So we'll take up this discussion from this point onward, and where Swamiji will be discussing personal God is as much an entity for himself as we are for ourselves. It's a very interesting discussion. So thank you so much. We meet next week again. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpan.